So please look after mom. She's short, she's intense. There's a person dragging a chair behind me. It doesn't stop. I've been telling them to stop. Please let me shoot this. Alimuot na kaya. Sigot na kaya kong ilok. Hey everyone, it's Krisha from Third World Book Nerd. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we talk about books, reading, the nerd life in the Philippines. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Today, let's catch up and talk about all of the books that I have read for 2021. The good, the bad, the DNF. So please stick around. By the way, the questions that I'll be answering today are part of the Midyear Book Freakout Tag, which Moon from Moonlight Scrolls and Wina from Wina Wonders have so very kindly tagged me on. So thanks you guys. If you want to do this tag as well, I'll put the questions in the description box so that you can also answer it. So you might be wondering, Krish, why are you shooting something for the mid-year when it's already August? First of all, I'm always late, okay? Second of all, there's just so many things that are happening right now, okay, in my life. I had to go to the doctor a lot. I got vaccinated. I became a tita. And I'm in the middle of quitting my full-time job, so that's a lot. But anyway, here we are, all caught up, so let's just do the tag and let's hop right in. First question, what's the most beautiful book that you've read this year? I'm gonna give this one to Black Girl Call Home by Jasmine Mans. Look, I'm not an expert or a literature grad, so I can't really give you a professional opinion about the poems in Jasmine Mans' Black Girl Call Home. What I can say though is that the pieces that I read here resonated very deeply with me. It's like, first palang nako nga pages, first few poems, I was already bawling my eyes out because for some reason, even though the book talks about the author's experience as a black woman in today's society, a lot of it deeply resonated with me. So it's kind of, you can say it's universal in its specificity. Wow naman, big word! She talks about queerness, she talks about identity, at times she talks about religion and God and just a lot of things, really. There's even like, there's a piece there that's like basically a diss track to Kanye West, so it's all good. Second question, a book that made you happy. Just thinking about this book already makes me happy. It's The Luckiest Lady in London by Sherry Thomas, and it centers around Lord Renworth, si Felix, and si Louisa, who wants to marry well, which is kind of like the goal in all of historical romance novels, right? The girl has to marry well. The thing is, she's not that pretty, she's not that smart, she's just average. But somehow, she becomes the luckiest lady in London when she catches the eye of Lord Renworth, who is like the ideal bachelor, pero may tinatago pala siyang mga issues deep inside his heart. So that's basically the premise of The Luckiest Lady in London, and I just love it so much. The build-up was great, chemistry was great, banter is great. The groveling though could do a little more because I love a good grovel, but this was a very enjoyable read, and just thinking about it makes me happy already. So that's it. That's the book that made me happy this year. It's The Luckiest Lady in London by Sherry Thomas. So that's that. This is not an ad for banana milk, by the way, if you're wondering. I just really like this drink. Up next is a book that made me cry. Walang iba po kundi si Please Look After Mom by Kyung-Suk Shin. I already discussed the synopsis of this one in my previous video, my fully booked book haul. So if you don't know the synopsis of this one yet, you might want to go and check it out. But this book, my gosh. So Please Look After Mom. She's short, she's intense, and she's told from 4 different perspectives. So you kind of get these different vignettes of who mom is based sa katong mga narrators of the story. It's really interesting because some perspectives of the book are told in the second person. It's actually, I think, one of the first books that I've read nga second person ang narrator. So it's really interesting to me. And other than that, it doesn't just show you a portrait of a mother in contemporary Korea, but it also shows you like snippets of daily life in the country. Another interesting thing about this one is that when I looked up the reviews on Goodreads for Please Look After Mom, a lot of the reviews said nga the book was just guilt tripping daw nga kana, it was just too over the top. It was like painting ko no like a martyr kind of mom, etc., etc. And then ako kay murag that those types of comments just didn't resonate with me. The kind of mom that was depicted in the book is very similar to what I see in my daily life as well. Not just for my mom personally, but like other moms here in an Asian country. Like, funny kayo kaya mga reviews, then they were from like Western perspectives, which is interesting. Wana sila nga, oh my gosh, this is so over the top. Mom is like a saint. She's doing all the chores and she's like a martyr and she does all this to guilt trip us and all that. But I feel nga, if you're living in Asia, mas makarelate ka niya kay most moms are actually like that here. So I found it kind of interesting how the message, I guess, of the book just flew over their heads and like missed the mark for some of its readers. So yeah, Please Look After Mom made me cry, and if you want to check it out, go ahead. So the next question, your favorite characters for this year. This is kind of cheating because number one, I'm not just gonna choose one character, and number two, I actually haven't finished the book yet, but I'm gonna pick all of the characters from Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett's Good Omens. From Crowley the demon, who was actually the serpent in the Garden of Eden, to Aziraphale, this angel nga uptight but fun, to Adam, who is the Antichrist, who somehow they've misplaced and goes on to grow up in an idyllic English village. I love everyone in this book. It's like an ensemble cast, so it's very entertaining, it's very fun. I love it so much. These are my favorite characters so far this year. Up next, we have the biggest surprise, and this one also goes to Tito Neil Gaiman because I read a lot of Neil Gaiman this season. The book that gave me the biggest surprise goes to... We still have a couple more questions to go, but yeah. Hi, so we're back. We had to redo our shoot because di na po kaya ng ating powers ang construction noises behind us. So, it's a new day and a new shirt for me. Naligo ba ako? I'll leave that up to you. So, let's pick up right where we left off. I think we were talking about the book that gave me the biggest surprise. And since it's a season of Neil Gaiman, I'm gonna give this to... American Gods by Neil Gaiman. Without getting too spoilery, if you haven't read this book or watched a TV series, there is a huge ass twist at the end of this book that I, for some reason, never saw coming, basically. So by the time that the twist came, I was like, what the heck? This whole book distracted me with so many good stories in between, because what it is that on one hand it's a story of Shadow and how he goes on this cross-country adventure to help the old gods fight with the new ones, basically. But in between those chapters, you see mga stories of how the old gods actually came to America. So you've got African deities, you've got leprechauns, you've got Native American legends, all wound up, all woven into the narrative of this book. So I never saw that twist coming, and it's, I think, one of the biggest surprises that I've had this year. This next one is about the most disappointing book that I've read this year. I will wholeheartedly give this to A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I don't know if this book is just objectively not that good or if I myself have changed as a reader sa akong mga preferences, but I really could not engage with this book. Like years ago, at the height of my Sarah J. Maas fandom years, I would have been happy to read whole chapters about the main characters doing super mundane things, like maybe exercising or like stacking books at the library, which actually Nesta does in this book, but right now I just don't have the patience to go through it all. And also the language that the author uses, it's just so confusing to me. Kay murag, this whole thing is set in this fae world, right? It's like some supernatural magical world situation, and like the time era is somewhere like olden times, mga before the industrial age. But their language, they talk like they're from the 21st century, and it really threw me off. Like there were some terms that she used, like lactic acid and workouts, that just did not match with the world building. So muto daghan siyang flaws for me. And even though I really love the dynamic between Cassian and Nesta, they were my favorite characters sa previous A Court of Thorns and Roses nga books, I just couldn't connect to them, and I ended up not finishing this book at all. So it was kind of a disappointing, or you know, it was kind of like the biggest letdown. Up next, we have the best sequel. This one's kind of cheating because this actually isn't a sequel, it's more of a companion novel, and I'm gonna give this one to Emma Chase's Royally Yours. Although not technically a sequel, this is the 4th installment of Emma Chase's Royally series, where we follow the love adventures of the royals of Wesco. And this one tells the story of the boys' grandma, si Queen Lenora, in teenage years, and how she, well, young adult years, and how she falls in love with their grandfather, who's this rakish, roguish kind of adventurer who comes into her life when it was all in uncertainty and turmoil. So, ganun po ang usapan. It's very nice. It's very kilig. If you watch The Crown, it's very similar to that, although it's just raunchier. So, it's all good fun. The next one is the best new release. I am excited for one new release, and it's coming out this August. It's Helen Huang's The Heart Principle. I loved all of Helen's books, especially The Bride Test. It's one of my favorite contemporary romances of all time, and I'm really excited to hear Kwan's story in The Heart Principle. So yeah, it's gonna be released this August, I believe, so I'm very eager for that one. So yeah. And now we're saving the best one for last. It's the best book you've read this year, and I'm gonna give this one to Lalani of the Distant Sea by Erin Entrada Kelly. Like Lalani's story, we as readers are also taken on a journey, and in it we meet different characters, different settings, and it's all so good because it's very neatly tied up in the end. Although one thing that I had a bit of a bump, or like more a roadblock, was that there were so many names of the creatures to memorize. So clearly it's written as an adventure for middle grade readers, because old people like me cannot keep up. The themes of death, loss, and suffering are actually not sugar-coated, which was a bit surprising to me at the beginning, but in the end, it all made sense, and I appreciated the book all the more because of that, especially since the author is Filipino, and I've got a feeling that she based a lot of Lalani's story sa setting here sa Philippines as well. And lastly, this book kind of subverts the thought nga you have to be chosen to do good in this world. Like you have to have magic, you have to be the chosen one, you have to have some kind of power to affect change sa imong community, which is I really love about this book. Kay Lalani and her friends, they're small, they're frail, often they're very afraid, they make bad decisions, and yet they still have the heart to do what they did, and I think for me that's very beautiful. Kaya naman po ang winner ng ating mid-year check-in na ito for the most beautiful book is Lalani of the Distant Sea by Erin Entrada Kelly, and if you haven't read it, I highly suggest that you do. It's a very good book. So yun. So that's it for a mid-year check-in, you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, maybe share this one to your friends, and if you want to be notified of new content, please click the bell buttons below. How about you? What's your best read so far this year? Let me know in the comments below, and let's chica about it. This has been Krisha from Third Book Nerd, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Manata doggy. Sige, go. Magpadayon ta. 1, 2, 3, go.